Hello, students. I hope you're doing well. So, like I said in class, these are a couple of slides that I wasn't able to show you in class because I wanted us to spend some time discussing the articles. So, you need to take these notes on the back of the notes that we started in class on Monday. A couple of quick notes. You're already familiar with natural increase rate when it comes to calculating the population of a particular country. But I want to draw your attention to the fact that NIR can also be referred to as RNI, which is basically the rate of natural increase. So you can either have natural increase rate or rate of natural increase, but the way you calculate NIR is the same. You would take the crude birth rate and subtract that from the crude death rate, and you would get your NIR. When we're trying to determine a population's natural increase rate, there are a couple of factors that we should look at. And just please remember that when we are looking at the natural increase rate of a country or of a particular population, we're just looking at things or factors that affect the births and deaths within that country. So, in addition to the notes that I gave you on Monday, there was a photocopy of some text, and it started off with talking about determinants of a population's natural increase rate. You have economic development, education, gender empowerment, healthcare, culture traditions, and public policy. I encourage you to read those very short paragraphs when it comes to trying to determine the natural increase rate of a population. Something that's not in your Rubenstein book but might show up on the AP exam in May is something called the regional demographic equation. And this one is good because this allows you to include immigration and migration within a country or to or from a country. It's used to help demographers predict how much a population will grow. So you'll have the future population equaling your current population, plus, of course, births minus the deaths. But then we add in plus immigrants and minus immigrants. Now, in our next chapter, we'll be learning and reading about immigration. And maybe some of you already know the difference between immigrants and immigrants. Basically, immigrants are people who are migrating into a country. Immigrants are people who are migrating outside of the country. So, for example, when I moved to Switzerland 2 years ago, I was considered an immigrant with the E. And then, of course, we are all familiar with the term immigrants here in the United States. Another thing that you should be familiar with from your reading or just from our earlier discussions is population structure. Fertility or births and mortality or death vary not only spatially but also temporally or by time within a country. And a population pyramid is very, very helpful to demographers and human geographers when they're trying to look at a country's population. So it's a special bar graph known as a population pyramid that can visually display a country's distinctive population structure. And when I say structure, I mean the basic buildup of that population. So, of course, we have our x-axis and our y-axis. And along the x-axis, we have the percent male displayed to the left of the 0. And then we have the percent female to the right. And then along the y-axis, we have the age cohorts that are typically grouped in 5-year intervals. And the youngest, of course, is displayed at the bottom with the oldest going to the top. Another term that's not in the Rubenstein book but that you need to be familiar with is the word cohort. So basically, it's just a population group unified by a specific common characteristic, such as age. I guess if you had to liken it to another term that we've discussed, you can consider cohort similar to region, right? You have an area or location that shares a common characteristic, but for cohort, we're talking about people and population. So for my visual learners, here's the makeup of a population pyramid. Here we have the pyramid for the UK. Here we have the populations in 5-year bands or in their cohorts. Then we have males to the left and females to the right. Elderly dependents, economically active adults, and then of course we have our young dependents. Okay, now these age ranges aren't like set in stone, but this is again just to give you a nice general idea. And what population pyramids show us? So here we have country A and country B. When we're looking at the slope, we're looking at the death rate of a particular country. The width at the base of the pyramid is related to the birth rate of that country or its fertility rate. The proportions of men and women are also really important to look at. We know on this side, this is the male makeup or male cohort, and then this is the female cohort. Proportions of men and women can suggest male or female migrations as well. When we're looking at the height of the graph, of course, that's telling us the life expectancy because we know that down here it begins at 0 to 4, and then 5, and so on and so forth, and then it goes up to there. So depending on how tall your population pyramid is, that lets us know the life expectancy of a country. And any kinks or dents within the pyramid also indicates dramatic reductions in birth rate or increases in the death rate in the past, and those can happen for various reasons. And then we have the area of graph that indicates the total population, okay? And you can compare actually areas of different population groups or different sexes on one graph. So finally, the overall shape of any population pyramid is really important to us as demographers and human geographers because it lets us know or helps give us clues as to where along this development spectrum is a particular country because we're looking at all of these different factors such as death rate, birth rate, life expectancy, so on and so forth. The overall shape of a population pyramid can indicate whether it is an economically more developed country or an economically less developed country, if it's a core country or if it's a periphery country, if it's an LDC or MDC. Okay. And one last term I want to bring to your attention when we're talking about population is something called the demographic or hidden momentum. And this gets into countries that are thought to be or believed to be in stage 2 of the demographic transition model, the DTM. These countries that are LDCs tend to have this phenomenon or this concept of demographic or hidden momentum. This happens when large numbers of young people have babies, thus increasing the population because the newer generation of births surpass the number of older people dying. And so if we had to think about what the population pyramid of a country that is experiencing hidden momentum or demographic momentum, it's safe to assume that the population pyramid would be wide at the base and narrow at the top because, again, we're talking about a large increase in the birth rate and it's surpassing the amount of people who are living to older age and eventually dying. I strongly encourage you to watch the next video on the demographic transition model because this will become very helpful, especially for my visual learners who read in the Rubenstein book but needed a nice summary. So I'll record another video where we'll just go through a couple of these slides about the demographic transition. Okay, if you have any questions, please let me know. Bye-bye.